My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Jesus, in today's gospel, you speak to us of houses and foundations, of builders and of building techniques. And this is really no surprise because you yourself are the son of a craftsman. That is how people knew you. You were the son of Joseph, Joseph, the craftsman, the carpenter. We know that Joseph was a manual laborer and that you very likely worked with him. And perhaps it's not far-fetched to say that you, Jesus, would have built houses or been involved in the construction of buildings. And so you present us this parable, which in a way is very close to your own heart. Everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house, but it did not collapse. It had been set solidly on rock. And everyone who listens to these words of mine but does not act on them will be like a fool who built his house on sand. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house, and it collapsed and was completely ruined. Well, this parable is very visual. We can, as we pray, each bring to our minds the situation that you, Jesus, are describing. Two houses. Perhaps these houses are in the same town, maybe on the same street. One is sturdy. It's built with good material. It sits solidly upon a cement foundation, which in turn is on a rock, perhaps up on elevated ground. The other is flimsy. It's made of cheap resources. It's built on shifting ground, perhaps on an area with erosion, or maybe even in an area that's prone to flooding. Of course, it's not about the houses, really. It's about our souls. And the question that we want to ask today is, what am I building my soul on? On rock or sand? What material should I be building my soul with, so to speak, so that it's firmly founded, it's firmly rooted, it's planted? I read recently some English history about an area off the coast of England called the Eddystone Rocks, which is a treacherous reef. And because the reef is submerged during high tides, it has been the site of many shipwrecks throughout history. It's 13 miles southwest of Plymouth. And there today stands the Eddystone Lighthouse. It's 160 feet high. Its light can be seen for 22 nautical miles. And it has saved many, many people because of its light. It's famous as the first open ocean lighthouse in the world. No one had ever attempted to build in such a wild, remote place, open to the full fury of Atlantic storms. But in the late 1600s, the first of 4 attempts were made. And the first was from a very bold and self-confident architect named Henry Winstanley, who decided to build on this reef, to build a lighthouse. And he could only access the rock to lay the foundation for this lighthouse during low tide. It was a very complicated construction. But eventually, the lighthouse was completed in 1699. And the finished construction was a sight to behold. Winstanley, who was quite ostentatious, was keen to make it stand out. So he painted it, he gilded it with gold leaf. He added a huge wrought iron weather vane and flags all over it. He emblazoned the sides of it with messages to soldiers that read in Latin and English. One of them read, "Glory be to God." It looked nothing like any other lighthouse before or since. I recommend that you look it up, the Winston Lee Lighthouse. And its light was provided by an assembly of 60 candles in the glass-paned lantern at the top. And legend has it that etched in that glass was the inscription, "Winston Lee, the best architect in England." And for 4 years, the lighthouse worked admirably. But in November of 1703, Winston Lee and a party of workmen visited the lighthouse to carry out some repairs. Well, while they were there, a storm blew up that prevented them from returning ashore. And during the night, the violence of the storm increased, and it became one of the most devastating storms that has ever struck southern England. Well, in the morning, only the stone base of the tower remained. The whole thing was taken to sea, the whole thing was destroyed. And of Winston Lee and his workmen, not a trace was found. Well, fast forward to 1759. John Smeaton, a civil engineer, was hired to build a new lighthouse. And he modeled his lighthouse in the shape of an oak tree, with the base being larger than the top, which was the first lighthouse to be designed in this manner, in which most lighthouses now imitate. Well, consequently, his lighthouse, which was built with much better techniques, it has outlasted all of its predecessors and stood for over 100 years. It was sturdy due to his engineering ability, but perhaps another clue to its longevity can be found in the upper storage room. Still visible to those who visit the lighthouse at Plymouth today is an original inscription which encircles the top of the room, which reads from Psalm 127, "Except the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it." It's an interesting contrast. That first lighthouse, which was very flashy, gilded, and with that kind of boast of the architect etched in glass. Contrasting that with this more solid and maybe more simple lighthouse built on the rock, where etched in stone it says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build labor in vain." The firmer the foundation, the more stable the building. And the second has this conviction of building his lighthouse in the Lord, with the Lord. Again, we ask you, Jesus, what am I building my soul on? On rock or on sand? What material should I be building my soul with so that it is firmly founded, firmly rooted? And we have a bit of the recipe here in the parable, because Jesus, you say, "Everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them, they are like a house built on rock." We need humility and we need docility. We need to be able to be humble enough to hear your words, Lord, and act on them, make them our own. The humble person is a person who is open to others' ideas. A humble person is one who is willing to change in order to grow. St. Augustine, he has this beautiful phrase, which is referring to this image of the tower. "Do you wish to rise? Begin by descending. You plan a tower that will pierce the clouds. Lay first the foundation of humility." Excavate, right? We have to excavate down into the solid rock of humility. I live in Manhattan, in New York City, and one of the reasons we have so many huge skyscrapers is because the island is literally made of granite. If you dig down, you find these huge granite boulders everywhere. And so the builders can excavate and plant these huge towers on very, very solid footing. How can we grow in humility? By listening to the words, to your words, Jesus, and acting on them. By being more united with you, Jesus, more open to your grace and to your indication. Jesus, you need to be the rock of my house. You need to be that solid granite on which I can build the tower of my soul. We are celebrating the novena of Our Lady, the novena of the Immaculate Conception, and she is Stella Maris, the star of the sea, that light which shines out to sailors who are trying to find a safe haven. She shines out because she is the tower of ivory, this tower that is beautiful to behold because she is the Ancilla Domini, the handmaid of the Lord. She has built her life, her soul, in the humility of being completely united to Jesus. We want to do the same. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations they've communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help in putting them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.